Hi, this is Tara McGillicuddy, and in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference between being an empath and being hypersensitive. I just want to remind you to make sure you subscribe to this channel here on YouTube. I'll be uploading more videos on a regular basis. And if you have not done so already, go to empathnow.com and sign up for the free Empath Now Empowerment Toolkit. That's empathnow.com. So yeah, today I'm talking a bit about the difference between being an empath and being hypersensitive. And if you're on this channel, more than likely you've already heard the term empath and you have probably a rough idea of what that means, but you may not have heard the term hypersensitive or hypersensitivities. And they often can appear to be very similar, but they're quite different. And if you're hypersensitive or if you're an empath, there are different things you can do depending on which one you are, or if you're both, to function in the world, to be happier, to be less stressed, and to get through life. So an empath is someone who absorbs and feels other people's energy, their feelings or emotions, and sometimes their physical symptoms. So we're almost like magnets or sponges to other people's stuff. Somebody who is hypersensitive or has hypersensitivities feels things more intensely. So somebody who's hypersensitive might hear a noise like a car horn go off, and it might drive them crazy because the sound is irritating. They sense it differently than somebody who's not hypersensitive. It might be louder to them or just more irritating to them. Someone who has hypersensitivities might be a very picky eater. So there are different textures of food. The taste and the textures might bother them. Somebody who's hypersensitive or has hypersensitivities might only be able to wear cotton, 100% cotton clothes. So somebody who's an empath might pick up other people's anxiety, other people's hypersensitivities, or other people's feelings. So they can really, we can confuse the two. For example, say somebody is hypersensitive and they go to a big department store. They're going to be overwhelmed, anxious, sometimes nauseous by the lights that are too bright, by all the people in the store because they're too loud, by the beeping cash register, or the smell of the person who walks by them that has cheap cologne on, or whatever else it is. So those things are going to affect the person who has hypersensitivities or who is hypersensitive, whereas the person who's an empath that goes to this big department store may have the same symptoms. They may be anxious, they may be irritated, they may even be nauseous, but it's for a different reason. They are absorbing and picking up other people's stuff. So the person who's the empath might be in the department store, and the person in the next aisle is angry because they just had a fight and they have this, so the empath has this uneasy feeling. Or the empath might walk by somebody who has a headache, a pounding headache, a migraine, and they might start to get a headache. See where they really seem the same because the symptoms are very similar? So somebody who has hypersensitivities, when they go shopping, might choose to go to a smaller department store or tiny store, has less people in the store, has less smells, has lights that aren't as bright. And that might more often than not help the person with hypersensitivities function better in the store. That type of thing may also help the empath, but what can happen when you're an empath, you might go to the store at like 3 o'clock in the morning when nobody else is there. It might be a tiny store. The lights, may not be as bright. But sometimes the empath is still going to have those symptoms, those physical symptoms, because the cashier might have a headache. Even though there's only one person in there, they're still picking up the energy and the symptoms from the cashier. Or, the person who was in there 3 hours ago was arguing on the phone with their spouse and angry. So they're very similar, and the strategies that help the person with hypersensitivities may or may not help the person who's the empath. So it's good to realize there may be a difference. So you may have been labeled as hypersensitive or having hypersensitivities 5 or 10 years ago before people were talking about being an empath. And maybe some of the strategies have helped you, but not all of them. And there's a good book out there called Too Loud, Too Bright, Too Fast, Too Tight. And it's by Dr. Sharon Heller. And it's all about hypersensitivities and how to function and get through the world with them. But if you're not tuning into the fact that you're an empath and that you're picking up on other people's energy, absorbing other people's feelings and energy, that's going to be challenging. So there are ways to help being an empath, and one of the big ones is to put up a bubble of energetic protection before you go out. Yes, being in places when there's less people can be helpful too. Some of the same strategies as someone with hypersensitivities. But it's important to know the difference. And yes, they overlap. You can have both. I am thankful I don't have both. I mean, every once in a while I have hypersensitivities. Like when I'm exhausted, things seem louder. And other times there's certain like foods that just drive me crazy, like one or two. But I'm very thankful that on an average day, I don't have the hypersensitivities because I am an intense empath. And if I had both, I don't think I'd ever leave the house or turn on TV or function or talk to other people. So I hope this was helpful. And the book I recommended was Too Loud, Too Bright, Too Fast, Too Tight by Dr. Sharon Heller. That's if you have hypersensitivities or if that's what you relate to. And then there's also a great book out there for empaths called The Survival Guide for Empaths by Dr. Judith Orloff. And I'll link to both in the description of this video. And if you're identifying as being an empath, make sure you go to empathnow.com and sign up for the free Empath Now Empowerment Toolkit. And again, make sure you subscribe to this channel because I'm going to be uploading more videos and lots of different resources in the coming weeks and months. Thanks again, and this is Tara McGillicuddy.